When I first started playing the Elder Scrolls Online, I was not accustomed to the way the guild traders work. So I remember doing one of the quests at the beginning of the game, and the quest said I needed to go find some white meat and turn it into the quest giver. And I remember looking around and trying to figure out how to get this resource. And I think it was part of the quest that teaches you how to steal or break in and rob in towns and things. So I think the general idea was that I would go into maybe a house and pick the lock and then steal the meat from somewhere. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to actually go find where I could really legitimately get that resource. And I thought, well, how hard would it be? I just need to go find a chicken somewhere and kill it. And then I realized I have no idea where to go. And it didn't seem like there were any appropriate animals to harvest in the area. Of course, I didn't really have any knowledge of much at all of how the game worked. I didn't know that you could go anywhere in the world you wanted to by just going to a way shrine and then teleporting to a different map. So to me, going to a different area on the other end of Tamriel was an insurmountable journey, just because I didn't really understand how it worked at all. And so I remember having this feeling that I'm not having a good experience with the game. I can't go to the trading post and just get what I need. I can't just go find it. I don't really get it. I was just kind of frustrated. There's no central auction house. I don't understand why it is that, you know, it just seems like the prices are totally ridiculous, because you get, 20 or 30 gold from an NPC, or if you turn in a quest, you get 100 gold or some piddly amount. And then you look in a trading post somewhere and you see that an item you want is listed for a really outrageous amount of coin relative to what it seems like you can readily earn in the game. Now, of course, the reason for this is because the player-driven economy largely does set prices, and when you earn your gold in the game from buying and selling with other players, then the gold that you would get from doing quests or anything like that is absolutely trivial. It's just not even something that you would really think about. Realistically, it's just a little bit of a gold drip to add gold to the economy, as other sinks remove gold from the economy. But really, the main way to make money in the game is by participating in the player-driven economy, by finding resources or crafting things people want and then selling them to other people. But I didn't understand that. I also didn't understand that being part of a guild with a guild trader is actually extremely easy. All you have to do is find one on the list and join, and in just a little bit you can very easily be trading with other people. I didn't understand at that time that there were all sorts of add-ons for the Elder Scrolls Online, which help you with things like knowing how much you should buy and sell for. There is so much about the game in that moment that I didn't understand. I started to feel like I just wanted to walk away and quit and uninstall it, because something small seemed like a major problem. Now, fast forward after a while, and I think that Elder Scrolls' segregated, player-driven economy system of guild traders is, while perhaps a bit eccentric, kind of cool. I don't think that the economy is as fascinating, perhaps, as a sandbox MMO like Albion Online or EVE Online, but the community and the lore and the depth of the game world more than make up for the lack of realism in the economic aspect of the game. All in all, I have a lot of positive things to say about the Elder Scrolls Online, quite a while down the road, having played the game for a while. And I will have to say as a disclaimer, I don't know the game very well at all, because the truth is I tend to be quite aimless in the way I play games. So I tend to just sort of look for something interesting to do, and I don't really worry too much about learning everything there is to learn. But I know a little bit more than I did on day one when I installed the game for the first time. Now, the reason I tell this story is because I think in life it's quite common for us to jump into something new, kind of like installing that new game for the first time, and we think to ourselves, this is going to be an amazing new experience. Maybe it's a new job, maybe it's a new relationship, maybe it's a new hobby. It could be any number of different things. But then once we start, we go through that honeymoon phase when it's new and it's cool and we're going through the tutorial. And then we're at the point where we're starting to kind of have a bit of an idea of what's going on. But there's still far more we don't know than there is that we do know. Only now we're clouded. Our vision is clouded with the perception that we have a somewhat complete picture of what we're dealing with. We really don't. But we kind of think that we do. We think we've got our head wrapped around it. And then we get frustrated because it just doesn't quite click. It doesn't quite make sense. And instead of learning a little bit more, we just fall into the trap of saying, well, this sucks. And I know I've seen such immaturity in children and young people. Maybe they're quite excited about something, but then they don't understand the mechanics, so they lose. And then quite often that excitement of, wow, this is amazing, I can't wait to play, will pivot into, this sucks and this game is stupid. In life, it's like that. Sometimes you have to power through things a little bit so that you can give them a chance to grow. Now, that doesn't mean that you should perpetually return to a dead tree that bears no fruit because you have some sort of an idea that that's what you're supposed to do. But sometimes we can mistake our problem for a problem with the world. Sometimes the things that frustrate us aren't outside ourselves. They're inside ourselves. And that can be a liberating thing. Because once we calm down a bit and stop blaming other people and being frustrated about things, we might be free and able to appraise the situation, reevaluate, and find an advantage we didn't know that we had. Now, in the case of a game, you can always take a break. You can always do something else. and then come back at it when you've had the opportunity to put a little bit of distance between whatever was frustrating you, and then go back at it with clean eyes, a clean perspective, a fresh perspective. Sometimes that's important for us to do as well. It is important to avoid letting one bad attitude about something cloud your entire perception of it, to kind of teeter between saying, I really love this, and saying, well, that's total crap. I want nothing more to do with it. Now, that could be a very easy thing for people to fall into the trap of in a relationship. That kind of, you tell someone, oh, I love you, that you're the most wonderful thing ever, until that person does something that you find to be repulsive or unkind or ridiculous, and then suddenly you might tell yourself, well, you're just totally off the rails, not worth my time, right? But you don't want to be that person. You want to be even keel enough that if something doesn't bear fruit right away, you still have patience to go through the lean times so that you can maybe come out on the other side and reap the harvest when that time comes. But then you also have to realize, just like being the new player in a game, as I was describing, sometimes the problem is you. Sometimes you just need to get a better understanding of what it is that you're dealing with, what you're talking about. And then when you personally grow better, then you're less likely to be bitter. And so I will close with that thought. I remember once I went through something that was quite disappointing to me as a teenager. I'd gone to a Bible camp. Well, actually, no, I take that back. It was a Bible school. It was a university for studying theology. And I'd gone there for one semester, and I'd had a very negative experience. And that's probably a story for an entirely different video. But suffice to say, I came back from that place and I was bitter toward the people who were there. I was bitter toward my church and toward the leaders of my church and all sorts of different individuals. I was just being a bitter teenager. And I remember a man who I did respect to some degree, who was also one of the parishioners in my church, said to me, you can either get bitter, or you can get better. And that was all he said. He smiled. He was jovial enough about it. He wasn't really scolding me, but he did have a good point. And I did in that moment feel corrected, and it stuck with me for the rest of my life. I remembered that there are times when we're tempted to be made bitter, and in those moments we must let the feelings go, let the inclination to be frustrated go. And I'm reminded of a Bible verse in which Jesus had said, if your eye offends you, cut it out. If your hand offends you, cut it off. It's better for you to enter the kingdom of heaven injured than it is for you to go in with all of your members, but to essentially have betrayed your faithfulness to God. And in a pragmatic and perhaps more liberal perspective, I think that there's a lot of things in our lives, attitudes toward people and philosophies that don't bear good fruit, and maybe hobbies even that wind up being more toxic than they are positive. And it's important for us to let those things go sometimes. Because even if there's something that's good, it's better to let it go if it's bearing bad fruit in your life than it is to continue to return to things that do you harm just because there's something good about them. If you can't find peace in something, then you've got to let something go. That doesn't mean everyone should let it go. But sometimes even good things aren't good for us. It's said that the children of Israel wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. Again, a Bible story. And during those 40 years, they must have wandered in circles for a great deal of time. Because to spend 40 years walking around what's essentially the outskirts of modern Jerusalem, people have spent their entire lifetime walking around a piece of land that's in modern times a day's journey. And in any case, at the end of all of it, Moses went up on a hill outside the promised land. And he looked down at it. He saw that it was full of blessings and abundance. And it wasn't for him to go in. He spent his whole life leading people so that they would be able to see it, so that they would be able to go in and have a better life, but in the end, he didn't go in. He only lived to see others benefit from the fruits of their journey. Now, isn't it interesting how sometimes we travel a long way and we learn a lot of lessons along the way? And it's not so that we can benefit. It's so that we can serve our purpose. And there's two lessons there. One lesson is that sometimes you have to go a very long distance to get where you're going. And sometimes where you're going isn't very far away. It's sort of like an S. It's that slowly winding path that goes in circles in all sorts of strange directions. And eventually it leads you where you need to go, but it does it in a really roundabout way. You get there, but only by going through this obstacle course of strange, peculiar experiences. And then you finally reach the place where you were supposed to go. And you wonder why it took so long to get there when you were so close to it all along. And there is an irony there, but it's not an irony. It is an irony that makes sense because that's how it's meant to be. But then that second lesson is that sometimes the blessing of our life is not getting there and then being able to benefit from those things. Sometimes the blessing of our life is getting there and being able to share those things with others. It's being able to give someone else a chance at the legacy that we won't personally experience. That's also an irony. And it's also a thing that's meant to be that way. That we plant seeds for trees that will grow large one day. but under whose shade we'll never rest. We have a journey before us, a journey of many different sorts, and we don't necessarily make a lot of sense of it. We don't understand 100% why it all is the way it is. Other than to accept that what we're doing for some sort of a reason that's greater than ourselves. And so for that reason, when we think that something's dumb or stupid or ridiculous or beneath us or something, it's a good idea to take a pause and remember that everything happens for a reason. And quite often, even the things that we think shouldn't be a certain way need to be, because that is the destiny we're meant to fulfill. Just as there was a time when I thought that this game I'm playing today, that I've put quite a few hours into and come to enjoy a great deal, was not for me, so it is. Sometimes the things that we think we're going to move on from because they're not what we need turn out to be the things that come back to us when all is said and done. To coin another verse, it's one of my favorites. It's a verse from Ecclesiastes. Cast thy bread upon the waters, for it shall return to you after many days. Thank you for watching.